Hi, my name's Alicia Helen, and today I'm going to show you how to use PowerPoint to make an interactive question. So let's say you wanted to make a test review for your students. You could do that easily using PowerPoint. So I already typed this up just to kind of save time. Question 1, what color is the sky? Now the important thing you want to remember when you're typing your answers to your question is that each one's in its own individual text box. Now you're going to want to insert some shapes to tell the students which one's wrong and which one's right. So you're going to add I put an X on the wrong ones, and I just copied and pasted that to make it a little quicker. And then we're going to insert a smiley face on the right one. Now you're going to want to add some animations to these. So that way when the student clicks on this animation, it will tell them if the question is right or wrong. So the animation pins up, and you're going to want to do the trigger for that. That way it's just not just an X there automatically for when you hit text box 3. So when they hit red, that's going to come up, and you're going to want to do the same thing to green. But you're making sure you're doing it on the arrow, not the text box. So then you're going to do that for text box 4 comes up. And then you're going to do the same kind of deal when you click on blue. But this time it'll be correct. Now I'm going to add in a little shape so you can get to the next slide once you've answered this question. I'm going to insert a link to go to question 2. Now one thing I forgot to mention is that when you are doing this, you want to make sure that you have the mouse click off. I already do, so if this is clicked, unclick it and apply to all of them, so that way the student can just click on the slide and go to the next one. They have to answer the question before that comes up. And then you're going to want to animate your arrow as well. That way your arrow is not just sitting there and then go to the next slide right away. So you're going to do appear, and you want the trigger of that one to be whichever one's your correct answer. In my case, it's text box 5, so I'm going to click text box 5. Now you want that to start with the last one, that we don't have to keep clicking the correct answer to get the arrow to pop up. So now if we test this, see, I did it wrong. You want to make sure the animation is on the shape, not the actual text box. See, they're kind of close, so it gets a little tricky sometimes. So we're going to do appear, and we want that to click when we do text box 4. So now if we show it up big, the student will click on red. No, it's not red. No, it's not green, but it's blue. So yay, you got the link, and you can go to the next question. Now something else kind of cool that you could add in here when you have your question is you can add some hints. So you're going to do a text box, and I'm just going to type hint. Now you don't want that hint to stay up the whole time, so the hint will just be if they get the question wrong. So we're going to animate it so that it appears when you click on one of the wrong answers. So when you click on text box 3, it'll appear, and then we're going to add another animation to appear if you click on text box 4. So then you want these to start with the previous again, so you're not just keep clicking to get the hint. So let's try this again and see a look. You got a hint because it's red, and oh, nope, it's not red. There's a hint. The hint for green, and then blue. You can go on to the next question because you got it correct. All right, and that's how you would make you could make a test. You could obviously add some different animations instead of just appear. They could fly in. You can make these pretty. There's a lot of different things you could do with it. That's just a basic how to do. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.
Hi everybody, Nicole here. I recently shared this interactive timeline that I created using PowerPoint with the Articulate community, and I thought I would record a short screencast to show you all how I pulled it together. As you can see, when I hover over the different areas of the timeline, information and images become visible. This is all made possible using PowerPoint's actions. So let me show you how I did this. So here I am on a blank slide in a new PowerPoint project. The first thing I'm going to do is click on the View tab and open the Slide Master. Here, I'm going to delete the placeholder items on this master slide, and instead I'll add a staggered row of colorful rectangles, which represent the items on my timeline. I'm also adding in a gray header rectangle with the title and some simple instructions. The reason I'm putting these on the Slide Master is to save time and make it easier to recolor my timeline down the road if need be. When I'm done adding these items, I exit the Slide Master. Now, the functionality that I want to achieve is that when they hover over each column in the timeline, it shows them specific information associated with that column. So to do that, I'm going to create one new slide for each item in the timeline. So to do this, I'm going to duplicate this first slide. And now when I hover over a timeline item, I want my other items to be blurred out. So I will add a semi-transparent rectangle over top of this entire slide, which will act as my blur. And then I will also assign an action to this rectangle. The action hyperlinks to slide 1 when the user mouses over the background rectangle. Now, with the background blur in place, you can duplicate this slide 5 more times. So in the end, you have a total of 7 slides, your main slide, and then 6 slides with the blurred white background. The next thing we'll do is set up the items on our timeline. We're going to go back to the Slide Master and grab all of these shapes and copy them. This is done so that we can save time using the copy and paste feature. We'll close out of the Slide Master and we will paste these objects onto slide 1. Next, we'll add a semi-transparent rectangle across the center of our timeline. For each column, we will copy and paste the corresponding colored rectangle and the white semi-transparent rectangle and paste them onto the corresponding layer. We will do this for each column in the timeline. When we've done this for each slide, we can delete the shapes that we've pasted onto slide 1 since we no longer need them. My next step is to add a text box over each column in the timeline. For this example, I'm using years as my markers on my timeline. So I create my first text box and I size it appropriately. And then I use copy and paste to duplicate it across the rest of my columns. When all of my text boxes are in place, I assign an action to each one. The action will hyperlink to the corresponding slide when the mouse hovers over the text box. I do this for each text box, one at a time. My next step is to copy and paste all of the text boxes onto every slide. Finally, I need to style each individual slide. So to do this, I'll do a couple of things, including adding some additional information or text, and you might also want to add in some photos or characters, like in the example that I posted in the community. In this example, I'm also deleting the text in all the other text boxes, so that they are less visible, and it's the column that you're hovering over that really stands out. I am leaving the text boxes there and not deleting them, because I want the actions associated with them to still be functional. I do this for each slide. When you've updated all 6 slides, you can head on over to the Articulate tab on the ribbon to preview your interactive timeline. And voila! As you can see, when you hover over the columns, the appropriate slides with the information are displayed. So this shows you how using the appropriate actions, you can use PowerPoint to create something fun and interactive. Thanks for watching.
All right, let's work through an example of how we can maybe use PowerPoint to create a learning object and make something a little bit more engaging, more interactive for the students. Let's just take a real simple example. I have an existing lesson plan here called What is Blood? And if we look at the lesson plan, notice we've got description, audience, some of the skills addressed, standards addressed, some learning activities. And as part of that learning activities here, the teacher, in 2 items here, 5, after summarizing student feedback, the students show the student this 2-minute video from YouTube. And then in activity 7 here, the teacher hands out a blood components fact sheet and asks the students to read through it and complete a table. If we look, here's the fact sheet. It's got different components of the blood with information about them. And this lesson plan was adapted from this lesson plan here that was posted out to this teaching resource website here. So I just took that example and going to see how we can modify that slightly. Okay, so I bring up PowerPoint. And let's just create from scratch. I'll do File, and I'll create a new PowerPoint, a blank presentation. So I've got kind of a blank canvas there. And let's just put a title in here, and let's call it What is Blood? And let's just call that an interactive view of the, or look, interactive look of the components of blood. Okay. Now, in order to get started, if I go back to my fact sheet, first thing I want to do is I want to have a fact sheet and change that into my interactive PowerPoint, and then also this YouTube video here. So I think what I'll do is I'll copy this URL for the YouTube video. Okay. And then I'll come back, I'll create another slide. Let's just duplicate this slide. And let's put in, replace this text with our YouTube video link. Okay, I'll make that a little smaller. And I'll just leave this as What is Blood? And let's change the title of that to just say Blood Video. And I'm going to make this whole thing smaller and bold. It might be bold already. Let's see. There, I'll make it bold. Bring that down, make it smaller, bring this over. And what I'll do is put this blood video here, the title, I'll put the URL right here. And then let's insert the video itself. So I'll do insert video, and it's an online video. And one of the options here is YouTube, and I'll paste in the URL we have. And click down the search, there it is. I'll highlight it and do insert. And there's my blood video. Let's just line up all these 3 objects so they're all, I'm clicking on all 3 and holding the shift key actually, clicking on the title, holding the shift, clicking on the 3, and now I'll align those just so they're aligned. Okay, so there's a slide I'm going to use to show the video. Let's duplicate this slide, and then let's go back to this first one, and then let's just say change this to components of blood. Let's make the title bigger. All right, I'll make this across the screen here. Let's get rid of the YouTube video. I'm highlighting and deleting. Highlighting the URL and deleting. And now I have some text that I'm going to leave that and bring it down. Now let's bring over all the graphics that we're going to use for the different areas for the fact sheet. Okay, and we'll use that as a kind of a menu. So I'm going to highlight on the red blood cells and click and hold the shift key. Click on the white blood cells and hold the shift key. The third one there, hold the shift key. And I'm just clicking. Now I've got those 5 graphics selected. I'm going to right click and say copy. I'm going to come over to my PowerPoint slide and just paste those in. Okay, now I've got those graphics all pasted in. Now let's put them in some sort of order. I'm going to put the white blood cells over here. I'm going to put the red blood cells, I'll put the red blood cells and the platelets on this side, and the white blood cells over here, and the plasma right there. And let me just line up all these. I'm going to click, hold the shift key and click, line up, arrange, align, and I want to align the middles there. Same thing with these bottom two. Align the middles. I just like getting things lined up so it looks pleasurable. And then let's do the same thing and align these vertically. I'm going to take those two and align those vertically. And the same with these. And just for more consistency. Okay, so now we've got things lined up and we've got the plasma in the middle. This is what I'm going to use for my menuing and allow the student to go from place to place. So what I'm going to do is click on this text now and give some instructions for the students and say, click on any of these objects here to learn more. So click on any of the objects listed above to learn more about the components of blood. When you are finished, please, when you have completed, let's change that. When you have completed all the content areas from above, click on the exit button in the bottom, right, left, to finish, to complete. Let's not complete. to exit. There we go. Okay, so there's some instructions for the learner. Let's just tighten that up a little bit. Okay, and there's the instructions. Line that up. And there's one thing missing here, and that is I want the students to actually go through this video as well. So what I'll do is I'll put in, I need to put in two buttons here. Let's put in two buttons. One is for the exit, and one is to get to this blood video. Okay. So if I go to add one more component here and do insert, and let's put a button in, a shape, and there's a movie shape right there. So let's put that in. Okay, there's the movie shape, and when I'll click on hyperlink and select the option, I'll go to slide number 3, the blood video. All right. So now, and let me use I like these auto aligning functions within Word, within PowerPoint. So now there's a button there to play this video, and let's just put in some text because it's not really clear what that really does. So let's put in some text. Actually, let's change the color of that too, and make that a gray button. I like that look there. And let's put in some text and put in YouTube video on blood. About blood. All right. And I'll just line this text up there. YouTube video about blood. There we go. Now we got a link in that will take us to the second slide there. Now the thing is I need to put an exit button in. So let's do insert, shape, and let's find some sort of exit button. Let's just do a see something. Oh, let's put in yeah, this button. That's just a blank one. Put it here in the hyperlink. When the hyperlink comes up, we'll go to end show. Okay, and do OK. And then I'm going to make that much smaller. It's kind of big. I'm going to align it, make it a lot smaller here, and then just put in some text that says exit button. Okay, there's the exit button text. It's lined up. Moving it over, and let's just change the color of this button with format to the same we had for as the video. Okay, so to be safe, let's save this. I'm going to file, save this as what is blood, PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so now I've got some components. I've got a title slide, I've got a components of blood, and a blood video. This could be our main slide to start, so let's just put in some instructions and get a button to go to the menuing. Okay, so let's insert a button. Insert, shape. There's the next button. Pretty simple there, and hyperlink to next slide. That'll work. And let's put that there. I'm going to change the format to look like the other buttons. And I'm just going to add some more instruction here. Click on the button below to continue. Okay, so now I just have this main. Let's make this a little bit more attractive here, and let's take a format such as this. How's that look? Okay, and let's make that much bigger. Whoa, it's way too big. Okay, so I have my title slide. It looks a little bit more attractive. It's a description of what this is, and I'm going to add a period there, and then an action button that will just take us to the next slide. Then I have my main menu here where I want to navigate, have the learner navigate from with some instructions about what to do and review. And then I also have a link for one button already, a movie button that will take us to the second slide here to watch the YouTube video. Okay, so now let's continue by adding different components for these different areas within our PowerPoint. So I could do it a number of ways. Let me do this. I'll take this slide and I'll duplicate it. Okay, and then I'm going to remove the video. I'm going to remove the link just so I have consistency in the fonts that I use. And I'm going to not delete that text area. I'm going to take this text area and use this as my first title. I'll leave it in the center here. Let's call this whatever our first one is here. Let's go with red blood cells here. All right, so I'm going to rename this to red blood cells. Okay, and make this much bigger. And then I'm going to go back to my lesson and get the text out of the Word document there for the red blood cells. I'll just highlight that, copy it, and paste it into my PowerPoint here. All right. Now I have my red blood cell text. Let's left align that. Let's make it a lot bigger. It's way too hard to read there. Okay. And move this around a little bit. And now I have all my text. What I want to do is, whoops, I want to size this so I can make some room for my graphic. All right. So I got to bring that up. I'm going to shrink my text just a little bit. Oops, a little too small. There, about 20 is good. Let me, I guess I get a little bit smaller. 18, probably appropriate. Okay. Point size of 18. just really aligning these things so it looks a little bit more appealing. And then let's do one other thing, and let's bring a copy of our red blood cells graphic over. So I'm going to copy that, bring it over, and put it up there so we have some, we'll put it, yeah, just put it kind of like here, line it up with the top of my text so we have some consistency. Okay, so now I have red blood cells linkage, and let's do the same thing for the others. So let me duplicate this. I'm going to bring over the next graphic. Let's take the platelets graphic. I'll copy that. Come over here and replace the red blood cells graphic with the platelets graphic. Replace the title. Call that platelets. And then replace the text from my Word document for platelets. Highlight it, copy it, bring it over. So notice I'm not retyping everything. I'm taking what I did in the existing lesson plan and just kind of reshaping it, basically. Okay, there's platelets. Let's do that again for the next content area. Duplicated that. Let's go with plasma. I'm going to delete this graphic and place the plasma graphic in. Trying to stay consistent as well on the look and feel of all my slides. Changing the title. So this way the learner comes to expect a certain consistency, where the graphic's going to be, where the navigation's going to be, where the titles and text, etc. Okay, so now I've got the plasma text. Just replacing now, and there's plasma. I can certainly do a lot more to doctor this up a little bit, but I'm just trying to, more important of us how we use PowerPoint to do navigation. So we've got plasma, we've got a couple more to go, the white blood cells. And again, I'm just replacing graphics, copying, pasting a number of things, and creating a PowerPoint slide for each. So let me change the title. Okay, and let me get the text for the phagocytes from my Word document, which was already created. Where's the phagocytes? There's the text. Okay, and then one more time, duplicate that. And my last one is the lymphocytes. So I'm copying that graphic. Notice these are mostly, I'm just right-clicking and pasting. And then changing the title. And one more time from back to my lesson plan. Get the lymphocyte text. Replacing that. Okay, now I have the makings of a piece here. To be safe, I'm going to save a version. All right, and I just have a couple things now to do. I want the learner to really start here on the first slide. Click this next button, which we set that up. If you remember on the hyperlink, I said click go to next slide. So they'll start by looking at this. They'll come into this next slide, which is really our main menu, and it has all the areas. And I use these graphics, and I want to use these graphics like links now, or buttons themselves. So what I can do is here on the white blood cells, I'll right click that and I'll do a hyperlink, or I could have gone insert hyperlink, but notice one of the options here is link to a place in the document, and there it is. And I want to do the white blood cells to number 7. So when they click on this button, now this graphics become a button for me. and it will go there. Here's the second one for the white blood cells. Again, I'll highlight the graphic. I could do insert, hyperlink, place in the document, and then this one I'm going to go to lymphocytes. So I kind of set up all my slides. Now I'm just putting in all the navigation. There's the plasma graphic. I'll right click on it, hyperlink, place in the slide plasma, the red blood cells, right click, hyperlink, go to red blood cells, and then finally platelets, right click, hyperlink, platelets. Okay, so now I have linkage for all these graphics here, because if you remember we did the video earlier. I'm going to save, and then the exit button will take us out. So let's just see what that might look like. So if I go to slideshow from the beginning, there's my what is blood. If I click on the next button, it takes me to my menu with objects, and then if I click on any one of these, let's click on plasma, notice it takes me to plasma. But I don't have any other navigation built in, except, you know, the learner could use these forward and backward buttons. So I'm going to hit escape there. And let's put in additional navigation so that after they go from here, from one of these subject areas to the main slide, to give them some navigation to return back. So let's start with this blood video slide. This is where they could watch the video. And let's insert a button, a shape, and let's call it home. Let's just make it the home button. Click on that, and when I hyperlink, I don't really want to go to the first slide because that would be this what is blood. I want to go actually to the second slide. So I'm going to do slide, and then it's the components slide, which is kind of my main menu. Okay, going to link on that, and then I'm just going to put this in the bottom right for consistency, make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to change the format of it to look like our other buttons. And this I'm going to actually just put in some text just to say what this is, because the first time they may not know. I'm going to insert a text box. Let's see, where's the text box? There's the text box right there. Put that in and click over here and just type return to main menu. Okay, and then I'm going to move that text right here. Okay, I'm going to keep that highlighted. I'm going to hold the shift key, click on the home button, and I'm going to right click and say copy and put that on the rest of my slides now. So I left some space open there. And so again, for consistency purposes, that button's going to be in the same place for all of these other content slides. All right, just a couple more to do. And I now have, I think, navigation everywhere. Let me save my PowerPoint. All right, and let me try it again. I'm going to just do slideshow from the beginning. There's my title slide. Interactive components, click next. Now there's next. Now I have options here. Let's go to white blood cells here. I've got information. I can learn all about it, and click the return to main menu, and it takes me back. And notice that's just happening with all of these now. I seem to have some navigation and learner control that allows me to go ahead and do any of those things. And I've incorporated video. And I have an exit button, and then when I exit, it's there. So the only thing left to fix in this is we don't want the learner to be able to use the arrow keys back and forth. We want them to just using the buttons. So how can we maybe disable those arrow keys? So there's one way to do that with PowerPoint. I'll select the first slide here, and I'll go to the transitions, okay, and the transitions option, and notice over here there's to the far right on the menuing there's advanced slide, and on mouse click is clicked on. So I'm going to unclick that. I'm going to change the duration. This is how long the slide would go, from 2 seconds to 60 seconds. And then the last thing here is notice this apply to all. I'm going to apply it to every slide. These these options to every slide in my deck. So I've done that, and now every slide, if I go to another slide, notice it's 59 seconds or a minute almost, and the mouse click is off. So now that's all set up for all the slides. I'm going to save. And there's one last piece. So if I do this, let's see how that looks. I'll just do slideshow from beginning, and as I work through it, but if I hit the arrow key, notice it just went, the arrow keys still kind of work. So I need to do one other thing to actually with PowerPoint to make sure that arrow keys do not work. And if I go back to the slideshow itself tab, setup slideshow. If I do setup slideshow, notice one of the options here is browsed at a kiosk full screen. If I click that on, notice now it kind of disables some options. So I'll click OK, and I'm going to save. And now when I do slideshow from the beginning, I'm going to do OK, I'm ready, I'm next. And I'm going into my content area. Now, as I'm hitting those arrow keys, nothing happens. So it's kind of locked that in. And now I have a fully functional, kind of interactive learning object that I worked off an existing lesson plan. Certainly a lot more I could do here. I could clean up a lot of the text and graphics, add some more functionality. But this was a basic way to take existing lesson plan, modify it with technology, and create a more of an interactive learning object. So hopefully this has given you some information and a way to kind of get started with your own projects, and also got you thinking about how you might be able to be creative with your different lesson planning.
Here is a PowerPoint technique, which is something that's really useful, especially if you have an interactive whiteboard. What I'm going to create is an interactive PowerPoint, a non-linear PowerPoint. And my first slide here is a diagram of how this is going to operate. I'm going to start up here in the top left corner with just an intro slide and go to a question, a real simple question, multiple choice question, one where someone can select an answer from a list of choices. And at that point, based on which answer is selected, I'll either go to a slide that says, I'm sorry, that's incorrect, or I'll go to a slide that says, yes, that is correct. Now, so you can see the one that's incorrect has a feedback to the question, so a person can ask the question a second time. So as many times as is needed. Got a little loop, and finally when they get the answer correct, they'll go to the next question. The same kind of loop is there. They finally answer question number 2 correctly, and then one of the questions, just so you can see how this is done, I've added some graphics. So instead of selecting answer 1, 2, or 3, you actually have to click on the graphic, which is the correct answer. So I've pre-made all of my slides. When you do this sort of thing, it is important that before you start creating these interactions, that you create all the slides. You'll see why that's important in just a second. Since I'm using PowerPoint, I thought I would ask some questions that are actually helpful if you're doing PowerPoint. My first question here is, what key starts a presentation? And I've listed 3 different function keys. F1 is what you press for help. F3 is what you press when you're trying to find something. F5 is what you press to start a presentation. In fact, if I press F3 right now, it starts this presentation. To make this whole thing work, I have to have some slides that I can go to when I click on each one of these options. My next slide here is, no, that's not correct, try again. The slide after that is, yes, that is correct, continue to the next question. So let's add an action that'll make this first one work. I'm going to highlight what someone would click. They would actually click with the mouse on F1, and then I'm going to insert what's called an action. The action in this case can just go to the next slide because F1 is not correct. The next slide, as you can see right here, says no, that's not correct. I can click on OK. Same with F3. That action is the next slide, which is not correct. But F5 is a little bit different. F5 has to skip down to the third side, or it has to skip a slide. And there's really no option for that. There's a next slide, previous slide, first slide, last slide. But if I scroll down a little bit, there's an option that says, let me pick a slide. I click on that, and now you can see why it's important that all the slides be finished ahead of time. Because I'm on question number 1, what key starts a presentation. The other ones have been the next slide. No, that's not correct. But this one is, yes, that is correct. So not only have I created all of my slides, notice that every question has to have a no and a yes because each one has to refer to the proper yes, that's correct, or no, that's not correct. I'll demonstrate that in a second. But in this case, I'm going to say yes, that's correct. And at this point, I have my 3 possible answers. Now, if someone clicks on the no, that's not correct link, I have to give them a chance to go back and try again. So now I'm going to highlight no, that's not correct. I'm going to highlight give it another try. And in this case, we're going to go to the previous side. Again, I'm going back one side. For my yes, that's correct, I want them to click on continue and go to the next question. So now my action is yes, next slide. Now, without having all these slides finished, I wouldn't be able to see which one's next, which one's back. Let's start this. And on my first slide, it says, what key do I press? If I press F1, no, that's not correct. If I hit F3, that's not correct. F5, that is correct. And I can continue. Now, one other thing. What happens if I click the word presentation? Or if I just click on blank space? It's built into PowerPoint that every slide has the ability, if you want to use the mouse as a, kind of a clicker, all you have to do is click on a slide and it will automatically advance to the next slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of my slides, and underneath transitions there's an option that says advance slides on the mouse click. I don't want them to advance on a mouse click. I only want them to advance if someone clicks on the right answer. So now if I start my presentation all over, if I click on the word presentation, if I click any blank space, nothing happens. But if I click the correct answer, I get the correct answer. Now, you might have noticed these links turned purple. That's because they're visited links. What happens if a student sits down, goes through a bunch of slides, gets every one of them correct on the first try, another student sits down, and all they see are the visited links, which happen to be correct? It could probably sway them just to guess and not really, try to use any recall they may have. So there's a way that you can tell PowerPoint not to change these colors. If you go into Design and go to Colors, you can create your own custom theme. Notice here at the bottom there's a hyperlink that's blue and a followed hyperlink which is purple. If I make both of those blue, make sure they're the same color blue, now those links are the same color even if I visited them. I don't know why this one's not. I guess I just had to refresh it. Well, I hope you don't have to do that. Let's try this. Let's do it for the whole. I selected all of them. Now it should work for all of them. Let's see. I've got another slide. Pressing B during a presentation, that would turn the screen black. Again, I would go through the whole process. Insert an action. In this case, if I look at all the slides, I'm on press B during a presentation. That is correct, so I go to the yes, that's correct following that particular slide. And go to my last one here. And that's where I actually have an object I want someone to click. So instead of having text, they would have to actually click on one of these people. Now, if you want to make this one a little more difficult, it says click the 20th president. That happens to be Garfield. But let's say you weren't going to give them the names. They would have to figure out, after they say they look up the 20th president or they know the 20th president, then they're going to have to figure out which one of these guys is James Garfield. What I could do if I wanted to is I could go to my format tool and I could crop those names right off just to add a level of difficulty to the question. Now, not only are they going to have to know who the 20th president is, they're going to have to come up with a way to figure out which one of these guys is Garfield. So in this case, I do the same thing as before. I click on the picture that I want the viewer to click on, and I insert an action, and I'm all the way down to click on the 20th president. Garfield is correct. If I do the same thing for Grant, let's look and see. No, that's not correct. And Rutherford B. Hayes. If I go to slides on this one, no, that's not correct either. Just in case you're wondering, the common theme here with these three presidents is they're all from Ohio. So now let's see what my presentation looks like. Now, notice I don't have a way to get out of this first slide. What I would really need to do is put a start right here, something that says when I click on it, go to the next slide. What I actually did is when I looked at those transitions, that first slide, I left the mouse click as OK. So the rest of them, it's turned off. But on my first slide, just so I had a way out of that first slide, so I can click on this one, but then I can't click on these. So F5 starts a presentation, B turns the screen black, and Garfield is the correct president. Now, if you are used to using the arrow keys, you can still arrow back and forth and go right through this presentation. So I could test Grant, that's not correct. Rutherford B. Hayes, that's not correct either. But if you let someone use a smartboard where all they can do is click on the pictures of the words, they wouldn't be able to use the keyboard like I'm doing. I have the whole thing finished. What I did is I made that first slide advance to this second slide automatically, and I can't click anywhere except the start. So now clicking on my slide doesn't do anything. When I click the correct answer, it works. If I click one of the wrong answers, it leads me to the correct slide, turn the screen black. And finally, if I click on the wrong president, I click on the correct president. And then at the very end, I have a link that goes all the way back to the first slide. So when I click on that, it starts my little quiz all over again. So that's really all there is to creating any kind of nonlinear PowerPoint. The big thing is create all the slides ahead of time before you start creating the actions, and always remove that transition that lets you click on the slide and advance it. That way someone doesn't accidentally click outside of the objects you want them to click on.